closely at this dense, sprawling forest of branches. This is a single human brain cell, a Purkinje cell, sketched by Ramon y Cajal in 1905. We usually talk about DNA as the blueprint of life. The word blueprint suggests that your genome holds a precise point-by-point map detailing exactly where every single one of these branches goes, and exactly how every synapse connects. To store the exact final coordinates, lengths, and angles of an entire structure like that, you need what information theorists call endpoint information. And for an organ packed with 86 billion neurons, calculating and storing the final position of every single connection requires a staggering volume of data. The math simply doesn't add up. The human genome only holds about 750 megabytes of data. That is barely enough space to hold a single high-resolution movie file, let alone the exabytes of raw endpoint data required to map out a human brain. Because the genome mathematically cannot hold the endpoint data needed to map the brain, the blueprint analogy is physically impossible, which leaves us with a massive gap. If the instructions aren't hard-coded in our DNA, where does all this complexity actually come from? Instead of storing a final image, nature stores an algorithm. To see how this works, look at this grid. This is Conway's game of life. We start with a few black squares on a white background and apply 4 highly rigid rules dictating whether a cell lives, dies, or reproduces, based entirely on its neighbors. When we let the system iterate, those 4 strict rules apply over and over again. Very quickly, the system grows on its own, generating intricate, oscillating structures and distinct patterns that travel freely across the grid. This image shows a one-dimensional cellular automaton called Rule 110, mapped downward over time. Starting from a single point at the top, an even simpler code iterates row by row, creating a system so sophisticated that mathematicians have proven it can perform any calculation conceivable. Every single pixel you see is strictly deterministic, but as you look further down the pattern, you find strange, chaotic interactions where stable geometric structures collide. Even though the mathematical rule never changes, the results become wildly intricate and unpredictable. You do not need massive amounts of starting data to create complex structures. You only need a small set of rules, executed repeatedly. There is a catch to this mathematical trick. It involves a concept known as undecidability. If you want to know exactly what the automaton will look like at iteration 1234, there is no shortcut. No formula exists that lets you skip ahead to the final answer. To know the outcome, a system has to physically expend energy over time to run through the first 1233 steps. You have to let the algorithm play out. This rendering shows an L system, which is a mathematical model that nature uses to build organic shapes. By applying iterative rules, a biological system algorithmically grows branching structures, like plants or the neural networks we saw earlier. Nature introduces noise into these algorithms. Every iteration follows the same structural laws, but minor variations in length and angle mean every single tree and every individual brain cell grows into a functionally unique endpoint. Biological complexity is the direct result of an algorithm paying a physical tax. It burns energy over time to unfold information that was never fully written down in the first place. Unlike cellular automata, which use the exact same math forever, biological systems dynamically update their own instructions through a process called a transcription factor cascade. Here, a specific gene is read to produce a single protein. That new protein then loops right back and binds to the DNA, triggering the activation of a completely different gene. That second gene produces a new set of proteins, which in turn activate a third. The rules constantly shift, creating a continuous, self-altering feedback loop. A growing neuron uses this updating algorithm to physically navigate through the developing brain. As it pushes forward, the cell continuously tests the fluid environment, governed only by the specific chemical rules active at that exact moment in its cascade. The axon is not reading from a master map. It doesn't know its final destination. It blindly responds to local chemical signals, based entirely on whatever instructions its current algorithmic step dictates. Finding out that the human brain develops without a grand, detailed blueprint often triggers a sense of loss. We worry that breaking the mind down into blind algorithms and shifting chemicals strips away its wonder. But breaking a system down doesn't destroy its magic, it explains it. The deepest beauty of the universe is that it doesn't need to explicitly sculpt every tiny detail. It simply sets the rules, provides a steady stream of energy, and lets the complexity grow itself.